Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely crucial. We're unpacking the exact structural blueprint that decides whether a business thrives in perfect harmony or, frankly, collapses into total chaos. Let's get right into it.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the growth trigger, move on to drafting the blueprint, meet the cast of characters, look at the engine of management, and wrap things up with the human element.
All right, Section 1, the growth trigger, from solo to chaos.
Imagine, if you will, a solo bakery owner, right? They bake the bread, they do the taxes, they sweep the floors. They need absolutely zero organizational structure. But think about what happens when that solo business suddenly hires 5 new people without setting up a clear framework first. Well, it's like having a boat with 6 people rowing in entirely different directions. It becomes a massive bottleneck almost overnight.
Without structure, you just get instant friction. Work gets duplicated. Really crucial tasks get completely ignored simply because everyone assumed, Bob was handling it. Without a structured response to growth, a business doesn't just stall out, it literally drifts toward inevitable failure.
Which brings us to Section 2, drafting the blueprint, chains, spans, and layers.
To fix all that chaos, growing businesses have to draft an organizational chart, and the absolute bedrock of this chart is a clear hierarchy. This is what ensures every single employee knows exactly who to take orders from. But it's actually about way more than just barking orders. It gives workers a real, defined, sensible warning by organizing what was once a chaotic crowd into focused, highly specialized teams. Now, this chart builds a vertical chain of command. Think of it as the central pipeline for instructions flowing all the way from the top brass down to the front lines. And that connects directly to something called the span of control. That's simply the number of people answering directly to one specific manager. When you combine those two concepts together, they literally dictate the entire shape of the business. When we compare these shapes side by side, some huge trade-offs start to emerge. Take a tall structure. It has a super long chain of command and a really narrow span of control, meaning managers tightly supervise just a handful of people. The downside, communication is painfully sluggish. Top management feels completely remote, and employees often feel heavily micromanaged. On the flip side, a wide structure actually forces managers to delegate because, they just have way too many subordinates to watch over. Communication speeds up, and job satisfaction usually skyrockets because workers finally feel trusted. Now, if a tall structure becomes too remote and bogged down in bureaucracy, a business might pull out a really drastic tactic known as delayering. They'll literally wipe out an entire management level to forcefully flatten the organization. It instantly speeds up communication and basically forces managers to loosen their grip. Moving on to Section 3, the cast of characters, populating the chart.
In medium to large businesses, this structural hierarchy gets predictably filled out with some very distinct roles. Up at the top, you've got directors leading entire functional departments. Right below them are the line managers who hold direct responsibility and authority over their teams. And then, out on the front lines, you have your supervisors handling the gritty, day-to-day control of the general workforce.
But here's a crucial distinction to keep in mind: line managers versus staff managers. Line managers are in that direct vertical chain we talked about. They actually have the real authority to give orders. Staff managers, on the other hand, sit just a bit outside of that. Think of your IT experts or your legal counsel. They offer highly specialized advice, which is great, but they can't exactly start barking orders at the marketing team.
Okay, Section 4, the engine of management and the art of delegation.
So what actually keeps this massive structure running smoothly? Well, a manager's job isn't just kicking back in a corner office. They actively steer the business away from failure. They do this by controlling the overall trajectory, coordinating between departments so they don't clash, and making absolutely sure resources are organized as efficiently as possible. A vital piece of this management engine is delegation, but it's governed by an absolute golden rule. You can delegate the authority to a subordinate to perform a task, but as a manager, you always retain the final responsibility, meaning if the job fails, it's still the manager who is on the hook.
When you do it right, delegation is an incredibly powerful tool. For the manager, it frees up precious time, letting them focus on high-level strategy instead of getting totally bogged down in daily minutia. And for the subordinate, it's profoundly motivating. They feel valued, they feel trusted, and it essentially acts as real-world training for their next big promotion.
Yet despite all these reciprocal benefits, some managers are absolutely terrified to delegate. Why is that? Honestly, it boils down to a deep-seated fear of losing control. Because they know they retain that final responsibility, they worry deeply that an untrained worker's mistake will blow back on them. Handing over the reins? That takes a massive amount of trust.
And that exact tension brings us perfectly to our final section, Section 5, the human element, leadership styles and trade unions.
All this talk about trust and control leads us right into leadership styles. First up is autocratic leadership. This is your classic my way or the highway approach, where communication strictly flows downward. Now, to be fair, this is actually excellent during a severe crisis when you need rapid decisions. But for daily operations, it completely destroys morale, making workers feel like unvalued cogs in a machine.
On the flip side, democratic leadership thrives on two-way communication. Future plans get openly discussed. This surfaces brilliant ideas from the front lines that the executives might never have even considered, and it massively boosts motivation. The trade-off, though, is that building consensus takes time, meaning the gears just move a little bit slower.
Finally, we have laissez-faire leadership. This is where the manager points to the destination, but totally lets the employees figure out the map. For highly skilled experts, it offers incredible independence and creativity. But if it's left completely unchecked, you run a huge risk of chaotic coordination and essentially a total loss of organizational control.
Now, because a single manager's style can wildly swing a worker's daily experience, employees will often balance the scales by forming trade unions. It's built on a very simple premise: strength in numbers. Through collective bargaining, workers can secure better pay, pressure employers for much safer working environments, and gain absolutely vital legal protection against unfair dismissal.
So, taking all of this in, I want you to look around your own workplace today. Really consider the structure you're interacting with every single day. Are you trapped in a tall structure, suffering under an autocratic boss who's absolutely terrified to delegate anything? Or are you thriving in a wide structure built on high trust and genuine empowerment? You see, the anatomy of management isn't just some textbook theory. It dictates the actual reality of your daily working life. So, what does your structure look like?